Welcome back to the poll position. The results are in, and we have a new Prime Minister. But what really happened on July 4th? Was there really a red wave, or was this victory merely a product of a disproportionate voting system? The answer is a little more complicated as it happens. The results across the country show a few key trends. The first is that turnout was low, and not many people were excited by this election. The second is that Reform are probably the biggest winners in terms of increasing their vote share. Finally, Labour's performance varies wildly in different seats and areas of the country. With 650 seats declared, the Labour Party has more than doubled their seat share, going to 412 seats compared to the last election where they won just 202. The Conservatives, on the other hand, won 121 seats, down from 365, in their worst result since the 1830s, losing seats to Labour, the Lib Dems, the Greens and Reform, with Lib Dems receiving the highest tally since the party was established in the 1980s. The Greens also broke records, with their share quadrupling, whilst Reform managed to go from 0 to 5 seats, to the dismay of the Conservatives. In terms of vote share, however, the result is quite different. Labour won just over a third of the overall vote share, and 500,000 less votes than they did in 2019, due to a surprisingly low turnout of around 60%, down from nearly 68% in 2019. This could be due to a lack of voter enthusiasm, as the result was seen as largely certain by the electorate, as most, if not all, opinion polls pointed to a Labour landslide, which in the end happened anyway. This was definitely a good night for the smaller parties, with Liberal Democrats winning the largest seat share their party had ever received, with 72 seats, whilst the Greens capitalised on both an anti-Labour and anti-Tory vote and won 4 seats. Reform, however, was by far the most impactful due to the size of their vote share, as they costed the Conservatives many more seats by outflanking them on the right and supposedly splitting the vote. We can see the effect of this in seats like Suffolk Coastal, where Labour won less than a third of the vote and held roughly 1,000 votes over the Tories, whilst Reform had a share of 7,000 votes. It is worth noting that Labour did see a 10-point increase in its vote share here, which wasn't the case in every seat. In Bishop Auckland, they increased their vote by 5 points, whilst in Darlington the Labour vote only went up by 0.3%, with the Conservative vote largely going to Reform despite Labour gaining the seat. The story is even more interesting in Wales, with the Conservatives actually losing every seat, whilst the Labour vote went down in seats like Vale of Glamorgan, for instance, by 5.2%, with votes going from Labour and the Tories to Reform and Plaid Cymru. Overall, the Welsh vote share for Labour went down by nearly 4%, with Plaid and Reform winning votes off them, and the Conservatives, with many pointing to a possible protest vote against the Labour-led Welsh government. Plaid Cymru also managed to gain 2 seats off the Tories, giving them 4 seats in Parliament. Reform managed to win 5 seats overall in the UK and came third in the popular vote, with Nigel Farage winning a seat in Parliament for the first time after numerous unsuccessful attempts, although this was actually an underperformance, with them expected to win 13 seats in the exit poll, with seats like Bassetlaw favouring them, but instead going to Labour. The other smaller parties did have a very good night, with Lib Dems winning huge swings in their target seats, with gains in the south-west and in other parts of the country as well. The Greens managed to win a seat off Labour in Bristol Central, and held on to Brighton and Hove, whilst gaining 2 rural seats off the Conservatives, with Waveney Valley and North Herefordshire both going Green. The biggest surprises of the night came from independents across the country running on a pro-Palestine, anti-Labour platform. Former Labour leader Jeremy Corbyn, although not exclusively running on a platform about Palestine, managed to win his seat of Islington North as an independent, beating the Labour candidate for the post. In Leicester South, prominent Labour frontbencher Jonathan Ashworth lost his seat to an independent candidate running on a pro-Palestine platform, with Labour seats such as Birmingham Perry-Barr, Dewsbury and Batley, and Blackburn all going to pro-Palestine independents. There were many places where independent candidates, or ones from minor parties, struggled to win, such as Rochdale, where incumbent Workers' Party candidate George Galloway lost his seat to Labour, or Birmingham Ladywood, where the incumbent and now Justice Secretary Shabana Mahmood beat an independent candidate who previously ran for the mayor of the West Midlands in May. The overall story of this election is even more interesting if we look at Scotland, with some absolutely massive swings towards Labour and the Liberal Democrats, with seats such as North Ayrshire and Arran going to Labour with a 21.5% swing from the SNP. Overall in Scotland, the Labour vote went up by 16.7%, whilst the SNP vote went down by 15%, giving Labour a lead over the SNP in Scotland for the first time since 2010, putting the SNP in real danger of losing power in 2026 in the next Holyrood election. Northern Ireland saw a very interesting result, with numerous seats changing hands. In North Antrim, the Reform UK-aligned Traditional Unionist Voice beat the DUP, with their leader Jim Allister becoming the MP in a huge upset. South Antrim, on the other hand, went from the DUP to the more moderate UUP, whilst Alliance gained Lagan Valley and lost North Down to an independent. One of the comments on my Northern Ireland video pointed out that Lagan Valley was surprisingly competitive, which went largely unnoticed by me to begin with. Despite the poor result, the DUP was still able to hold on to Upper Bann and East Belfast, meaning they were able to stave off a much worse result than what we saw. Overall, the election was a bad night for the Conservatives, with their lowest seat share since the party was founded in the 1830s. Labour, on the other hand, won a massive victory, but one that was hugely disproportionate to the votes they received. This was still by far the best election for smaller parties than we have seen in a long time, with one of the most multicoloured parliaments in living memory. Whether or not Keir Starmer can hold on to this success or even build upon it remains to be seen, with Reform climbing ever higher in the polls. Interesting times lay ahead in the world of elections. Will the Tories recover? Will Labour hold power for a second term? Or will we see Reform in power? Join me and we'll find out. Thank you for watching. Be sure to subscribe and follow me on Twitter with my account name in the description below. Thank you to the more than 100 people who have already subscribed, as I really do appreciate it. I'll be doing a video on the French elections as soon as possible, but if there are any requests for future videos, please leave a comment below. As always, have a great day and I'll see you next time.